All right, I'm seeing a lot of people flooding in, so I think now would be a good time to get going, and maybe we'll have a few more tricklers come in a little bit. But hello, everyone, and welcome to the Transform Your Passion for STEM into a Career session today, presented by Sanofi. We have four lovely individuals here today to present to you about this topic, and feel free to ask lots of questions about anything that you are curious about in the feed loop, please. There's the Q&A tab that I'm sure you're all familiar with at this point. Please use that tab to ask any questions you have, and I will get to them and ask them at the end of the presentation for these people to answer. And if you have any things that you just want to comment about in the chat, there's also the chat function on FeedLoop. Feel free to use that as well. And with that, take it away.
Well, thank you so much, Emily. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to all the finalists at the Canada-wide Science Fair, and good luck in the competition. We thank you for joining Sanofi's webinar on turning your passion for STEM into a career. My name is Eric Trottier, and I'm the country head of medical affairs for specialty care at Sanofi Canada. Today, I'm here with my Sanofi colleagues, Brittany and Rebecca, and our 2021 winner of the Sanofi BioGenius competition, Caroline Buhang, who will be talking about their passion for STEM. But first, I would like to tell you a bit about Sanofi Canada's commitment to supporting STEM education. At Sanofi, we are driven by one purpose. We chase the miracles of science to improve people's lives. We're dedicated to making a difference in the lives of Canadians nationwide, which start with fostering the next generation of talent. We believe everyone deserves an opportunity to embrace scientific discovery, regardless of their socio-economic background or cultural heritage. As Canada's leading science initiative, the Sanofi BioGenius Canada program encourages students to break barriers and explore real-life STEM research ideas, all before leaving high school. We're proud to celebrate the 30th annual Sanofi BioGenius Canada competition, hosted in partnership with Youth Science Canada as an extension of the Canada-wide Science Fair. The competition celebrates the best research projects from across the country with a focus on health sciences, life sciences, and biotechnology. This year, more than 50 regional STEM fairs participated in the competition, and 56 regional students winners were selected. In total, 98 projects from the junior, intermediate, and senior categories will be vying for 9 Sanofi BioGenius Canada Special Awards. We're also excited that winners of the Canada-wide Science Fair can move on to compete internationally at the International BioGenius Challenge held at the prestigious Bio International Convention in June, the largest biotechnology event in the world. Through the Sanofi BioGenius Canada grant, we're leveling the playing field for students in Canada to ensure everyone has an equal opportunity to discover STEM. The grant improves access to scientific equipment and learning resources to create opportunities for hands-on learning in school, stimulating curiosity and motivating students to explore STEM. The grant can be used to renovate existing school lab facilities, to purchase new equipment, to launch new programs to maximize the impact on lab, or a combination of all of the above. Winning school must demonstrate a commitment to hands-on STEM learning opportunities for all students, no matter their socioeconomic background, cultural or ethnic origin, sexual orientation, gender identity and or expression, family status, or location. The program will be a success with all of you, students and educators. If you're a high school student, we encourage you to start thinking about research ideas for next year's competition. If you're a graduate, share your passion for STEM with the next generation of researchers by encouraging them to participate in the competition. We all know young innovators who deserve a platform to share their work and passion for STEM. Stay up to date on Sanofi BioGenius Canada. Visit our website and follow us on social media to learn more about the competition and the grant. And remember, innovation knows no boundaries. With that, I'm now going to pass it over to Caroline to discuss what sparked her passion for STEM and talk about her experience. Caroline.
Thanks, Eric. So hi, I'm Caroline. I'm a grade 11 student from Oakville, Ontario. And I've always been curious about STEM, like I'm sure many of you are here today. I think my passion for STEM was really rooted in the affinity for the great outdoors and my appreciation for nature, because really STEM is everywhere. So I grew up running a lot with my dad. So when I started running by myself, I developed some other hobbies like mushroom foraging and outdoor photography. And that really helped me develop this sort of keen eye for being curious about STEM. So in grade 9, my STEM journey starts there when I first discovered slime mold on a school field trip. And that's what really ignited my passion for STEM. So from there, I've been able to participate in many science fairs and competitions. And the great thing about these sort of competitions is they lend their way so nicely into real world experience. So after my first year in science fair, I joined 2 female-founded companies through this program called the Female Laboratory of Innovation of Knowledge. And that was really exciting because I was able to take my research and the science that I was investigating and apply it to real world applications. And that has continued throughout my high school career. So last summer, I actually worked as a paid intern at Geotab as a solutions engineer. And that was really exciting. So the reason why I'm here talking to everyone here today is because in 2021, so last year, I won the Sanofi Biogenius Canada competition. And this was for my research in nerve regeneration. So my project in a nutshell, I decided to grow a species called slime mold. So you can see a picture there. And I absolutely love slime mold. What I did was I studied its growth patterns to better understand the dynamics of biological networks. And in particular, the biological network that I was interested in was the nervous system and how we can use this amazing organism that has been studied for computer science applications and apply it to create strategies to improve nerve regeneration diagnoses and therapies. So from there, I received the Sanofi International Biogenius Challenge Award. And that was super exciting because I was able to represent Canada at the International Biogenius Challenge, where I tied for second. And that was held at the Bio International Convention. And that was just an amazing experience because I was able to talk with other brilliant youth from around the world, but also network with some really influential companies. So I think overall, the Sanofi Biogenius Canada competition was just instrumental in ensuring my confidence in STEM. And now I have my own STEM story to share with everyone. And that's been really great. So while I'm still in school, there are a number of STEM activities that I participate in, and I really like to immerse myself before I start with my formal career. So I've done this by creating a journal club for youth, the youth that I met around the world who are interested in research, to talk about their research and really kind of galvanize our passion for STEM. I'm also a member of this biotechnology company called CSTS Healthcare. So after winning the Sanofi Biogenius, I was invited to this pitch competition. And from there, I was an honorary judge, and I was able to actually join one of the companies presenting, which was a great experience. And they work in precision oncology, so I was able to do some research with them. And throughout this whole journey, I think I've also developed this identity of really advocating for girls and women in STEM. I've had many experiences of being the only girl in the room, whether it's in my science fairs or in my science classes at school. So I've always wanted to encourage girls and non-binary people to feel comfortable in pursuing their STEM aspirations. So I've really done that by being an ambassador for Plan International Canada. And there I've been able to help develop some of these programs that I benefited from when I was younger. And that's been really great. And one last thing is that I'm an intern at Let's Talk Science, which is another connection that I actually met through the Biogenius competition. And if you see some of the social posts or newsletters or emails, some of them are written by me. So that's really cool. And I've also been able to provide some input on some of their projects like the Climate Action Lab and a new project that I'm developing. So stay tuned for that. So as I look forward to the future, I think I'm still debating on what I want to study after high school, but for me, it's really the intersection between biology and technology, which how convenient, the biotechnology competition. It's definitely something that I want to explore. And if I were to give advice to others who are interested in STEM, I would really say build a support system that nurtures your creativity and discovery. So through all these activities, I've really found a group of people who get excited about my work, and they understand all the hard work I've put into my projects, and they're also willing to celebrate with me. And that's been really great. So I wouldn't be here without all my friends, my teachers, my mentors, and parents, and they've just been instrumental in my journey. So overall, I really encourage each and every one of you to explore and pursue your passions, and I'm sure you'll meet great people along the way. And that was a bit about my story. I'll pass it off to Brittany to tell you about hers.
Thank you, Caroline. So my name is Brittany and I'm joining you from Sanofi. I'm currently the Deputy Director of Upstream Manufacturing for the new flu facility here on the Toronto site. So what ignited my passion in STEM were actually the people around me and the people that I interacted with early in my development. So my best friend growing up was diagnosed with juvenile diabetes. And this was the first time that I started to think about how can I use passion that I have to help other people and improve quality of life. And as I took this passion with me into high school, I had some great teachers in math, chemistry, biology, and they always encouraged me to continue to use my passion and find ways to apply it towards helping people and looking for the greater good. And this is what sort of ignited my career into pharmaceutical chemistry, where I went in for university. So when I started in university, I was thinking I would be a pharmacist. I was looking at drug development, drug design, and it wasn't until my last year of my undergrad degree that I found the exciting world of carbohydrates. And when I found this, I realized that carbohydrates can also be used in the vaccine world. And as I started to have this passion for carbohydrates and vaccines, I found a master's graduate lab at the university where I ended up joining to continue my scientific career. So my career path through university was starting out in a bioorganic chemistry lab where I focused on vaccines. I was specialized in gastrointestinal disorders, including things like traveler's diarrhea and even touching upon some other diseases, including actually some autism symptoms from gastrointestinal bacteria. And I did both my master's and PhD in the same lab at the University of Guelph. After my master's and PhD, I continued my career path by joining a postdoc lab. And during my postdoc, I switched gears and I moved into a stem cell-based research opportunity. During this time, it also had a little bit of carbohydrates flair to it because I was using carbohydrates for homing of stem cells to sites of inflammation in the body to help with things like osteoporosis. And I started looking at other inflammatory diseases such as vitiligo. During this time, though, my passion was always there for vaccines. And I was in Boston at the time for my postdoc, and I found a startup vaccine lab, which focused on pneumococcal-based vaccines. So I went back to industry and I decided to relaunch my career into vaccines. And I was actually a new vaccine development scientist in this lab. And I was able to look at different serotypes of pneumonia to help to build a new vaccine candidate. After my time in this startup, I made the tough decision that I would come back to Canada from the US because it was time to give back to the community here. When I came back, I came to Sanofi and I had the wonderful opportunity of being the tetanus subject matter expert. So I worked as the scientific liaison between the shop floor production and quality to help to make decisions to improve upon our vaccine and ensure a quality product on the market. And currently, I am now the Deputy Director for Upstream Manufacturing for our new flu facility. And I'm aiding with the tech transfer of our process at our Swiftwater site in the US to our new Toronto facility, which will be open in the near future to help bring flu to Canadian soil. So one thing I was asked to think about was what was my proudest career moment. And I thought about this long and hard, but I always came back to my proudest moments are that I always found time to volunteer. I always looked for new ways to get involved in the STEM community. Throughout my undergrad, I actually volunteered with Let's Talk Science. I ended up finding some Canadian Girls in Science associations during my PhD and master's programs. And then when I moved to the US, I joined the Chemical Education Foundation to help with bringing chemistry education to communities that are underprivileged. And then finally, when I came back to Toronto, I found an organization for Canadian women in STEM to continue my journey in the volunteering world. So one piece of advice I would give to those of you starting out your STEM careers or looking to pursue a career in STEM is that there will be times where it's difficult and it may get hard, but always challenge yourself and take those risks, because I think in those risks is when you find your true opportunities and your true potential. And it's really what accelerates you forward in your STEM career, whether it be, this is what I want to do forever, or I never want to do this again. It's going to help you and it's going to shape your career and help you push yourself forward. So with that, I will pass over to my colleague, Rebecca.
All right, thanks, Brittany. Hi, everyone. My name is Rebecca. I'm the Deputy Director of Biosafety and Industrial Hygiene at Sanofi Canada. So starting in high school and on through university, biology was always fascinating to me. It really started in grade 10 biology, where we had to take swabs of our cheeks and look at the cells under a microscope and look at the different stages of cell division. And I was pretty much hooked after that. So my interests ended up being particularly in genetics, genetic engineering, and molecular biology, especially as it relates to healthcare and new treatment technologies. So in university, I did my undergraduate degree in biology with a subspecialty in zoology and genetics. So while in university, I was accepted into what's called a work study position, where I did part-time work in one of the molecular biology research labs. So in there, I discovered I had a real passion for research and understanding how cellular pathways work, how they can be influenced or modified to create or affect different outcomes in the cells. So from there, I went on to do my master's degree in that same lab I did work study in, within the neuroscience program, but in the Department of Anatomy and Cell Biology. So my project really involved growing and manipulating a certain type of nerve cell. So for my career path, I would say it was not a very straight one. So after I graduated from my master's program, I began working as a lab technician and later became the lab manager for a hospital-based molecular biology research lab, which focused on diabetes research. So I worked in research in that lab for over 10 years. And during that time, I became a member of our institute's what's called a Joint Health and Safety Committee. So I was a worker representative representing our research labs on that safety committee. So in that role, I helped conduct safety inspections and was involved in improving safety at our site and in our research labs. So I discovered I really enjoyed safety in that role, especially as it related to research. And then after a few years of doing that, an opportunity arose for a full-time safety position within that same research institute I worked in. So I applied, they picked me, and I began my safety career. So in that role, I gradually transitioned into more of what's called a biosafety role, which means I focused my skills on assessing the risk to workers that were conducting work with pathogens, which are disease-causing microorganisms, and the toxins they can produce. So for example, some of the labs we had did work involving pathogens as part of developing new treatment technologies or vaccines. So after about 2 years in that role, there was a great opportunity for a safety manager position in the United States at Duke University, which I knew would further advance my safety career. So it was a big leap, but I applied, I was successful, and I moved to North Carolina to take a position as safety manager at what's called the Duke Human Vaccine Institute. So while I was at Duke, I was also part of what was called a National Infectious Disease Response Training Program, where we trained various worker groups across the whole country, including custodians, Customs and Border Guards, healthcare workers, firefighters, National Guard, and more. So our team traveled around the US to provide training to those workers, teaching them what to do if they ended up interacting with someone who may have an infectious disease or if there was ever a pandemic outbreak. And I mean, who knew how relevant that training would become during the COVID pandemic? So from there, after a few years in the US, I decided to come back to Canada and took on my current role at Sanofi Vaccines in Toronto. So in my current role, I'm responsible for ensuring that we comply with all biosafety regulations, and I help to keep our staff safe while they work with biohazards or other hazardous materials like chemicals. So part of manufacturing vaccines actually involves working with the disease-causing organisms we make the vaccines against. So I help to make sure our workers stay safe while they're doing this. Okay, so one of my proudest moments, I would say, while I was at Duke, I helped to create and deliver the infectious disease training courses I mentioned earlier. I'm really proud of that program and the positive effects we had on hundreds of workers we trained and their safety. So for example, we provided training to some local public health units that had very limited resources and funding. And they were so grateful for all the help and training we provided them for free from their perspective to help keep their staff safe. And I really hope what we taught them is helping them stay safe, especially now. And currently, I'm really proud to be part of a great safety team that keeps our staff and the community safe so we can continue conducting research and making our life-saving vaccines. So my advice to students interested in pursuing a career in STEM would be do what you love, find that thing that you're really interested in, and look around. There are so many STEM related careers, so take the time to explore your options and ask questions. Like for me, I had no idea biosafety was a profession or an option when I was in school, but I'm really glad I discovered it when I did. So that wraps things up for our presentations. So now we'll move on to the question and answer portion. Does anyone have any questions?
There's a few that have actually come in here on the chat, so we can get started with this. The first question asks, how would you suggest students get involved in biotechnology while in high school? Do you need to work in a lab or can you do a project from home? I guess we can start in alphabetical order too. I think that'll be easy by first name. So Brittany.
Well, that's a tough one for me. I didn't really do a lot in high school. I think this is actually better suited for Carolyn to answer.
I'm in high school, so I guess that works. I've started with like at-home projects because really in middle school, I wasn't a sort of sciencey kind of girl. I was more into journalism. So my plan was actually to become a journalist, but now I'm here doing science fairs and reading science things on my own time. So I would suggest starting with your own projects, which obviously you're here at CWSF, so that's amazing already. And then from there, I think really networking is a big thing. After this, I'm actually attending the Life Sciences Ontario Gala, which is really exciting. And I plan to do a lot of networking there. And then from there, you can ask professionals in industry. And when you show your passion and interest for biotechnology, I'm sure they'll see that. And you never know what sort of opportunities they can offer you. So I've just kind of been playing it along, and I've been really grateful for everyone who's helped me. And I think that's just how I've navigated my career so far in biotechnology.
Anything else to add from anyone before we move on?
I think she said it perfectly.
I thought so too. That was an awesome answer, and I'm sure that the finalists are really gonna take that and run with it. The next question here is also for you again. It says, oh, sorry. What would you say to yourself 3 years ago if you could go back? For Carolyn.
3 years ago. That was when I was in grade 9, I think. I think that was when it was my big turning point where I decided to pursue STEM. So I realized in grade 9 when I joined engineering club, it was a room full of boys and they were very loud and very aggressive, and that was not a conducive environment for me. So I just kind of shied away from STEM. So I would have said to myself, give it science and STEM another chance. Luckily for me, I had a lot of spare time on my hands because of the pandemic, and because slime mold had been something I was curious in, I started to participate in science fairs. But I think had the pandemic not happened, I probably would have still wanted to become a journalist. So I would have told myself, give science a second chance and have a wider mind to like what my future could hold.
Awesome. The next question we have here is, how would you advise students to choose between working in academia and industry? Which do you all prefer? So I guess we'll start with Brittany again.
That's a tough one. So I was actually faced with a decision when I was reaching the end of my PhD on academia or industry. And I think at the time I was actually thinking more academia based. I interviewed at some academic labs, but I also took the opportunity to go and interview in industry, hear about the opportunities in front of me, and sort of make an informed, educated decision. I think it really depends on what you're hoping to do later, even if you don't know, because I wasn't 100% sure if I wanted to go straight into academia. I took the leap and I took an amazing opportunity that was presented to me to stay in the academic world. But as I stayed in academia, it became evidently clear to me that I was ready to make the jump to industry. Maybe Rebecca will talk a bit more about that too when it comes to her, but I think you kind of reach a point where you know you've reached the crossroad and it's time to make the decision. It's time to jump over to the other side.
Yeah, I can add to that if you want. Yeah, I have experience in both worlds as well. I started in academia. I was there for years, both when I was a lab manager and then at the start of my safety career. So that's what I was comfortable with. That's what I knew. I didn't really know anything about industry. But like I said, I saw this job opportunity back in Canada. I wanted to come back and thought, this sounds really interesting. I think I'm ready to try this and see what it's like. In a lot of ways it's similar, but it can also be really different. Just the pace can be different, the type of work you're doing, the requirements. So yeah, if you do have the opportunity, like Brittany said, to get experience in both areas, I would highly recommend it, because you never know what will suit you best and what you want out of your career. I mean, I'm really glad I made the leap to industry. I love it here, but academia is great as well.
Awesome. Anything else to add? We good? Awesome. Okay, here's another one for Carolyn. It asks, how do you manage your projects in STEM and schoolwork at the same time?
I always ask myself too at like night, I'm like, how do I do all of this? Which is definitely a tough question. But I think what I do at school, I'm like quite involved at school, but all the activities I do at school are things that I enjoy. I enjoy talking about world politics and Model UN. I enjoy DECA, where I often apply like my science fairs and turn those into like startup companies to pitch in like business competitions. I'm a part of student council, but these are all things that kind of complement my interests. So it's not like it's like, oh, I have to go to this extracurricular after school. It's what I look forward to after like a science class or an English class. So that's always really nice. And I think my science fair projects and other STEM related projects, I always find them interesting. I can say now, if you ask me to like write an essay, I'd be less motivated and less inclined to do that. So that probably might be procrastinated to the very end. But I think for like the activities I'm participating in right now, I just enjoy them. So it's not like something I don't want to do. I always find time to do it anyways.
Awesome, that's a great answer. Here we have another one for all of you, and it asks, how should students network effectively? It can be very hard to network in an environment to which you are very new and inexperienced in. I guess starting off with Brittany again.
I think a good way, there are a lot of actually great mentorship programs that you can get involved in that reach out to high school level as well as entry level university. And it's a great way to network yourself with people in the science community. I've had a lot of experience with being a mentor and a mentee in these types of communities. And honestly, everyone just wants to help you. I think when you're in STEM, you just have this internal passion to help other people love STEM. So I would say, don't think about it as you're less experienced and you don't know what's going on, because everyone who has experience is more than willing to share it with you. Even if you think you're asking the most basic question, they will be so excited to share STEM with you that you'll just start to find this ease of talking to people and integrate yourself into the STEM community.
Anyone else have anything to add?
I can go. It's quite interesting because I'm actually speaking here today because I intern at Let's Talk Science, and I heard Bonnie Smith talk at the last year's BioGenius competition, which was held separately from the Canada-wide Science Fair. But I really loved what she had to say about science communication and youth involvement. So I reached out to her via email. I'm like, hey, I find your mission so fascinating. Could we have a coffee chat? So we had a coffee chat and we like really hit it off. She's so nice, like a fantastic person. And then I asked if I could get involved and she said yes. So I spent that summer just working as like a marketing volunteer. And I helped out with projects here and there. When I found a project that I was interested in, I offered my help. And then I suppose they liked what I did. So they invited me as a part-time intern for this school year. And that's been really great. My role has kind of grown from being a marketing intern to running my own project, which one of them is amplifying youth voices, which is really exciting. And I've gotten a lot of opportunities that just stem from that opportunity. And it all just started with asking for a coffee chat. So that's quite a funny story.
Awesome. Anything else? Okay. We're coming a little bit close on time, but there's two very good questions at the end here, so maybe we can get through them very quickly for anyone who's still on the call. The first one asks, what are your struggles with being women in STEM?
Okay. This is actually a question I get asked a lot, volunteering with women in STEM communities. But I think what I struggled with the most early in my career, and something I guess Caroline is experiencing still, is being the only woman in the room. Being in a core science program of chemistry, and especially being a PhD candidate in core chemistry, there were very little women in the program, and it was hard to find people to lean on. You know, you want to talk to someone, you want to hash things out, and I found it very difficult at times because yes, you're there with all your male colleagues and they're going to be a little more maybe aggressive and assertive than you, and maybe you will have a softer approach to things. So you have to adapt and find your way to integrate in without losing who you are too. And that's something I did struggle with early in my academic career. And it's something I think obviously we still continue to face, being sort of the lesser number in our rooms. But when we have big voices and we're passionate, we can make an impact. And Carolyn's a great example of that. So I'm glad to see that you're able to make waves because that means that what the rest of us have gone through is starting to change.
And I definitely see that changing. It's not like the male counterparts in my classes are trying to make this sort of environment where I don't feel welcome. I just find that in terms of like social norms, there isn't that much of a community that exists. For example, when I took my AP classes, I was often one of the only girls in the room. And it's hard because in the classroom, you need that peer-to-peer connection, because when you're stuck on a problem, you ask your peer for help. And if you don't have a group of people that you would have otherwise had if I was, say, in an English class, it's harder to get that better mark and move forward. And that also influences what courses you take. So a lot of university programs, they require you to take physics, biology, and chemistry. And if you don't take them, you can't even apply and pursue the next step in your STEM career. And I also often find a lot of my female friends, they're kind of discouraged from taking that science course. And I'm like, don't not take it, because you want to be able to explore what potential opportunities your future may contain. Even if it's not in STEM, you don't want to block off that potential option.
Anything else? Okay, I think just for the sake of time, we'll ask one more question here, and then we can wrap up. But it asks, what is your advice for creating a good STEM project?
I can answer that one. For this year, my project looked at chaos theory. So I always find my best projects look at the intersection between two different fields, just because I find that really fascinating. And there's tends to be like a gap between the two fields. So that's always like my go-to area when I'm looking for inspiration.
Awesome. And I guess another question just rolled in here, which I presume is also for you. And it asks, are you planning to mentor younger kids, for example, girls in younger elementary schools?
Oh, for me. I think definitely, and I'm sure Brittany and Rebecca have as well. But I definitely plan to carry on this idea of forming community and really passing down all the support, network connections, opportunities that I've gained to the younger girls and my school and my community. And I think that's the really empowering thing about women in STEM. Everyone is just so willing to help everyone. And that's not something I've seen like anywhere else. So it's just a great feeling to be surrounded, like even in this call today, by such empowering and confident women.
Awesome. Well, I think that about wraps things up for this session. So those are some pretty awesome answers to all the questions. I know that I definitely got something out of this session, and I'm sure the other finalists did. So if your question wasn't addressed or anything, remember the profiles are listed under this session in feed loops. You can reach out privately if you would like to ask something. I'm sure that everyone here would be glad to answer your questions, or you can look for other profiles like LinkedIn's and stuff. And I'm sure that would also be a great way to connect and build your network. So with that, thank you all for attending and have a great rest of your Wednesday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.